While the yakuza expanded their empire in the country, a fierce battle for power emerged in the late 20th century. The old players began to fade, and new players unbound by tradition arose. These young warriors, divided into male-dominated Bancho and fierce female Sukeban gangs, forged a code of honor that dictated their every move. With swagger and style, they ruled the schoolyards and hallways, terrifying both peers and teachers alike. These are the most dangerous school gangs in Japan. The rise of Bancho and Sukeban gangs. Post-war Japan was a far different place from the nice little country it is today. As it was a transitional period, many factions rose and fell, and old institutions of society were being torn down and rebuilt. While adults were reeling with this new reality, trying to find their way in the developing world, the teenagers, who were typically rebellious, took a different approach. It was a period of rapid economic growth and modernization, and traditional Chinese values clashed with new Western influence. The angsty teenagers felt disconnected from their cultural roots, and the pressures of modern society forced them to find solace in each other. Within this environment, rebellious school gangs began to emerge as a form of self-expression and resistance. From there, the Bancho gangs were formed as an entire subculture of 20th century Japan. The Bancho were primarily composed of male students and began to establish their places in school as embodiments of defiance and toughness. The term Bancho basically translates to boss or leader and was historically a government position. In the Ritsuro era of Japan, the gangs embraced a culture centered on fighting prowess, loyalty, and a very different sort of independence. They positioned themselves as protectors of their territories, sometimes claiming control over entire schools and even school districts. In some cases, some Bancho even submitted to even more powerful Bancho. Imagine at that age having that sort of power and influence. Within a short time, the country was overrun with these groups, and it was dominated by the dudes. Many females wanted to join, but female participation was strictly forbidden. And in response to being locked out of the world of organized petty crime, these fierce girls formed their own movement, which became a highlight for the introduction of the feminist movement into Japan in a time of the yakuza. The girls rejected the rigid roles assigned to them in traditional Japanese society and became a movement/subculture in their own right, challenging societal norms and expectations of women. To highlight their difference from the rest of the female teenage populace, the Sukeban girls often dressed in modified school uniforms. If you made it this far, how about you consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video? It really helps us out and allows us to keep bringing you high-quality content about the Mafia world. Thanks, we appreciate you. Initial activities. Early Bancho gangs often engaged in physical confrontations, often battling for dominance over students and themselves. Their activities ranged from fighting to bullying and extortion. After school, they would often partake in motorcycle or scooter rallies, roaming the streets in noisy and intimidating displays of power, and they would just as often end up with inevitable clashes with other gangs or with law enforcement. The Sukeban, on the other hand, engaged in more subtle, pernicious ways of rebellion. They expressed themselves through acts of vandalism, shoplifting, and petty theft, gaining notoriety for their defiance against authority as well as loyalty to one another. Sukeban girls stood out, something every teenager wants to do. They often wore traditional school uniforms with customized elements such as hand-sewn patches, longer skirts, and flashy jewelry, which became emblematic of the movement. They may have been forced to conform outside of the school, but within the school and around themselves, their presence symbolized a break from the expected submissive roles of young women at the time. Cultural impact and expansion. Before long, these gangs began to garner enough attention to be featured in the biggest media houses in the country. The Japanese media began to portray them in movies, TV shows, and manga, and these portrayals only contributed to their status as legendary figures. What was initially a story to tell inevitably romanticized the defiance and independence, something every teenager aims to achieve. Films like Sukeban Deka, Crows, Worst, showed the world of Chinese school gangs and began to make these figures cultural icons for rebellious youth. The Sukeban in particular had a major influence on media, with their rebellious nature leading to the establishment of a film genre known as pinky violence. This genre became a very popular one, replete with violence and eroticism featuring Sukeban or schoolgirls. It was particularly aimed at entertaining adult audiences, weirdly enough, and Toei, Japan's media giant, even made it a separate category. Naoko Takeuchi, the creator of Sailor Moon, was said to be inspired by the Sukeban. The portrayal of young girls in such active roles went a long way in changing the portrayal of women and femininity in Japan in the 70s and 80s. Unsurprisingly, both Bancho and Sukeban gangs began to expand rapidly, even inspiring many other similar groups across Japan. It became an everyday part of school life, with the Bancho embodying the ideal of masculine strength and the Sukeban challenging traditional femininity. In their peak years, these gangs were active in nearly every region of Japan, creating a subculture that resonated with teenagers facing pressure to conform. Pecking Order, Bancho hierarchy. These Bancho gangs were led by the Bancho, who was sometimes also known as Oyaban. A lot of traits would help to select the eventual leader, some of which include fighting prowess, strength, charisma, and of course, a reputation of fearlessness. The Bancho was complete authority and is responsible for making key decisions, leading his army against other factions, and of course, overseeing operations. There are Banchos that are so powerful that they hold control over several schools and have power over various other Banchos. These specific types of Bancho are called soban. The Bancho in elementary schools, yes, elementary schools, are known as gatikiyasho. The Banchos of schools are sometimes chosen when the students hold secret elections to pick the leader. On the other hand, there are also transfers of power that are more confrontational, with subordinates challenging the Banchos to fight and displacing them from their seats of power if they win. It was like a wolf pack. The alphas know that the power is often transient. Sometimes the annual selections would involve fights hosted by the gang members themselves. The next in line are the right-hand men, the lieutenants. In a specific gang, there could be up to 5 lieutenants who assist in managing the gang's day-to-day activities. Below them, there are several other lieutenants, each in charge of smaller subgroups within the gang. These lieutenants often manage recruitment and carry out tasks on behalf of the Bancho. The foot soldiers and recruits are next. At the bottom are the foot soldiers who carry out the orders from above. New recruits occupy the lowest tier and must prove themselves before they are fully accepted into the gang. Often, this means taking on challenging or dangerous tasks to earn their place, such as acting as lookouts or running errands during gang confrontations. Sukeban hierarchy. In Sukeban gangs, the Sukeban or big sister, Ansan, is the highest ranking member. The Sukeban would usually set rules, including things like don't do drugs, don't date the partners of other members, and so on. They would also set the place for gang activities, bullying, and often confronting non-members. Like the Bancho in male gangs, this queen usually earns her position by demonstrating both physical prowess and the ability to command respect from her peers. Directly below the Sukeban, a close-knit group of loyal members forms a core council or advisory group, often called the Circle of Sisters. These individuals are usually the Sukeban's most trusted confidants, each responsible for specific aspects of the gang's operations, such as coordinating with other gangs or organizing initiations for new recruits. The lowest members were the rank-and-file members. These ones follow the orders of the Queen and the Circle of Sisters, forming the bulk of the gang. New members start here at the bottom and work their way up by demonstrating their loyalty and ability to adhere to the gang's strict code of conduct. Charisma also goes a long way. The girls who inspire envy and respect from the other girls were fast-tracked to the top. Code of conduct. The Bancho gangs are known for their emphasis on loyalty and respect for hierarchy, closely resembling the yakuza, which some of them would join later in life. Members are to follow the orders of their superiors without question, and defiance or disobedience is met with punishment, which could include anything from physical beatings to expulsion from the gang. Bancho members were also bound by an unspoken code of honor, which dictate that they protect their territory and members with fierce loyalty, even if it meant putting themselves in harm's way. Unlike the yakuza, though, they only engage in relatively harmless activities, beating and intimidating students and sometimes even teachers. The Sukeban also emphasizes the values of sisterhood, solidarity, and mutual support, and members are expected to follow the Queen's rules meticulously, with penalties for disloyalty or insubordination. Sukeban codes often include unique rituals, such as the requirement of wearing gang-specific symbols or colors. Recruitment and Symbolism. For the Bancho, male students with natural fighting aptitude are actively sought. Recruits are usually boys who feel alienated from mainstream school culture or those who seek power, as well as a sense of identity and belonging. Bancho members frequently approach these students directly, testing them for qualities like resilience, courage, and loyalty, making them go through initiation rituals which often invoke low-risk physical trials. And it didn't stop there. Even after joining, new members were often assigned to carry out menial tasks, ranging from acting as lookouts during confrontations. The Sukeban, on the other hand, recruit girls with rebellious streaks and a willingness to defy authority. Many recruits are from low-income families and usually have no hopes of attaining the top office in the corporate world, so they are almost certainly doomed to play second fiddle to men who would then determine the course of their lives. It is because of this that many are drawn to the alternative community for girls who feel stifled by traditional expectations, and this is likely the reason they persist. Established Sukeban members often recruit potential members from schools or social gatherings. As for symbolism, the Bancho gangs emphasize physical endurance and the ability to fight, which is why initiations focus heavily on combat and strength. Beyond the physical tests, recruits often participate in rituals where they swear loyalty to the Bancho, sometimes marking the occasion with items like bandanas or emblems that represent their gang. In contrast, Sukeban symbols are emblematic of their independence from society. They replace the short skirts and moccasins of other schoolgirls, which gave people the impression that they were mild-mannered, with longer skirts and Converse shoes. Gang-specific symbols were also adopted, with the girls sometimes including punk and anarchist symbols on their clothing. The influence of these gangs still persists over the years, and their legacy continues to inspire films, manga, and music, forever immortalizing them as symbols of defiance and strength. If you want more stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe.